So, I've got an interesting publishing history, and it's a bit of a mix of different things. I have a computer science degree, a master's degree, a 4-year degree, at the end of which I was so fed up with computing that I decided to go into publishing, because I figured then I'd never have to see another computer ever again. Which was great for a while, till I realised that what publishing really needed was people who are a little more open to the internet and technology in general and the possibilities thereof. So I started slowly to make that my speciality, and at this point I was a fiction editor at an independent publishing house. But over the next few years, the intersections of technology and literature sort of became my speciality. So for a couple of years I worked at a company called Apt. We did a lot of new media projects within publishing, including the Enhanced Editions iPhone application. And then for the last 18 months I've been working for myself. I work for a range of clients. I talk to publishers large and small about ebooks and the internet. And I also work with other arts organisations and across the internet, really, in all kinds of forms of technology, on my own projects and with other people. All of it tends to be about books at some point there. Yeah, certainly. So in the last couple of years, a couple of things we're doing. One of the things I'm sort of pleased with but needs a lot more work is a project called Artists eBooks, which is an attempt to bring a little bit of the ethos of artist publishing to the ebook world, in the sense that so far most ebooks are very or entirely focused on recreating one particular type of text, long-form prose. And this seems fine but a bit of a waste, that the electronic format probably offers a huge range more opportunities than that. So I work with artists and authors to introduce them to the new platforms and talk about the possibilities, and maybe possibly craft some new literary forms that really take advantage of that. As I say, the results so far have been very mixed, and I've learned that the platform as it stands is quite limited, but I expect this will change. Or a project like Bookkeeper, which is a very simple online application for tracking your reading. It's simply a way of bookmarking books, keeping a list of those bookmarks, keeping a list of books you've read, and sharing your annotations. But the idea behind it is that the advent of ebooks allows for an incredibly new range of social activities around books, and that's one tiny expression of them, but which I hope proves a kind of test case for really exploring the networked qualities of the ebook. I didn't say the curse of the long prose. I mean, that's something that's affected the structure of the EPUB format, but that's a very small section of the ebook debate. I love long-form prose. I think it's our greatest challenge is to make sure we continue to provide good vehicles for that. But as to where the publishing industry is going at the moment with ebooks, there still feels like within the industry there's a real reluctance to give them their own space. They're still absolutely subsidiary to the traditional book forms, so prices are tied to hardbacks, which doesn't help. I don't believe we should be giving away ebooks really cheap, but tying them to hardback is possibly overkill. And there's still an incredible lack of consumer understanding of them. And the people who are doing the educating people about ebooks are Apple and Amazon. Which means they're taking the market very quickly, and we're kind of letting them do that. So publishers should be more proactive about that, and practically they should be talking to readers about ebooks, explaining them better, pricing them more sensibly, and particularly starting to look at ways in which they can sell them better. At the moment, I have no idea where to go and buy an ebook from a publisher. You know, I may, if I have an iPad, I may buy it from the iBook store. If I have a Kindle or a Kindle-type device, then I may be able to get it from Amazon. But in various parts of Europe, for example, there are dedicated ebook stores. In Sweden and Germany, they have organisations which group all publishers' ebooks together and provide a central venue. And I don't really understand why the publishing industry isn't doing that in the English-speaking world. Google Book Search is interesting, isn't it? It's always... I stood in a room at the London Book Fair 3 years ago where the main press officer from Google stood up and said, Google is absolutely, definitely not doing ebooks. That's not what we're doing. We're just doing search, I promise you. Q 3 years later, and obviously Google Editions and much else is on its way, which is not exactly entirely unexpected. It's just one of the many things we're going to have to contend with. You know, someone else can come along. Google's eaten a number of other industries already. If they turn their attention to what you're doing, they can knock you out of space pretty quickly, and they're doing it to huge sections of the publishing industry. They're doing it to essentially the backlist market and the classics market. There's not a lot we can do about that, really. I think there's always going to be a space for publishers to provide the better quality stuff, but the baseline is going to be what Google does. That said, Google can be a massive boon if it's used properly. I know outfits. Sort of Cambridge University Press have been putting all their books on Google Books for a while, and it's a huge boon from them because essentially they're opening up access. So the more academic stuff like that, there's a real bonus to it. Publishers have, again, it's an area, particularly backlist and classics titles, which we've been quite shoddy in dealing with properly for a while. So it's probably about time we had a bit of a kick to think about how we do it. It entirely depends on what you're publishing, but an understanding of the format, I think, is essential to anything like this. Whatever you're doing with technologies, and publishers are trying to do more and more with publishers, some level of technical understanding is absolutely essential. There's a point to which you can sort of say, I have a technical person, I can hand it over to them and they'll do it, but if you don't understand decently about what the technology is about, you're not going to understand about the possibilities of that technology, and you're simply going to miss out on it. So a lot of my work is testing those technologies, as with Artis eBooks, to see what's possible. And as soon as I did, I started to realise what the limitations of particularly the EPUB format are, and therefore what the limitations of that form of publishing are. The nuts and bolts, you don't need to have to be able to write HTML to be a good publisher. You don't need to be able to design the website yourself, but you do need an understanding of what's happening in these, and particularly of what the new things coming along are. It was only 2 years ago, less, when we launched Enhanced Editions. That very much came out of our own use of those devices and our own view of what was happening outside publishing with those devices and technologies. And seeing that no one in publishing was actually exploring them. We could see what the possibilities were, and so we went for it ourselves rather than trying to persuade another publisher to do it. 5-10 years from now, I would expect a vastly higher majority percentage, to hedge my bets massively, of people reading on ebooks. I see people taking up ebooks and e-readers all the time. The tipping point, really, it's here now. And as ever, it's come with good devices and friction-free services, particularly in the form of the iBook store and the Kindle store, for selling these books. And as soon as it's easier for someone to buy a book, through the device in their hand and read it comfortably, then wait for the paper version where it is. That's what they do, and that's what they're doing en masse now. So, what I would like to see though is those readers better supported. And in terms of the industry, I'd really like to see publishers take advantage of some of the extraordinary stuff that the ebook makes possible in terms of looking at some of the activity around reading, some of the social reporting and discussions that happen around reading that can now be tracked and interested, the actual analytics of reading itself, the possibilities for promotion and dissemination of text in different ways, whether that's bundling ebooks together, whether that's pricing possibilities, whether that's a number of other opportunities that escape my mind right now. But there's various things that we can do with ebooks that haven't been done with book publishing before, until we put the ebook at least on a par with a paper book, if not in front of it, as it soon will be. We're not really going to kind of start exploring this stuff, and again, we're going to lose ground so quickly as an industry if we don't do that. Yeah, absolutely. Without a doubt. The idea that they don't is kind of extraordinary when you see what's happened in every single other content industry. Yeah, of course they are. That's the way we are moving. It won't happen for a while. And obviously I'm only talking about Europe and North America. I'm talking about the markets where this stuff's developing now, but yeah, that's the way that it's going. I prefer it when people don't ask questions and let me get on with the work that I do. I work mostly in experimentation and by trying out new business models and new technologies. More of them fail than I normally talk about. The ones that work succeed in interesting and exciting ways. But the important thing to remember, I think, certainly about at least the way in which I work, is that we don't have any answers for what the future holds. We don't know what's happening with the industry. It is a scary and interesting time, but also publishing is always in crisis. We're always trying to work out what's going on, and all we have at the moment are examples to go on rather than answers. So I don't want to be asked questions, but I'd love to collaborate and talk to people more about what we do.